Welcome to Rauta. This video is done in commercial collaboration with our sponsor, Steelfest. Hello and welcome to Rauta's new episode of Underground Trio. Once again, we have three different albums here in question. Technically speaking, however, I think one of these are actually MCD, but let's not focus on that. Three different releases, and this time it's 1/3 of black metal and 2/3 of death metal. And as the Underground Trio format works, we'll go from worst to best. So first we'll go to Indonesia with a band called Tombstone. Yes, not exactly the most original name, and this one is To the Existence of Light. Now, I don't know if Metal Archives is present in Indonesia, but one could really figure out that there are plenty of bands with the same name, and Metal Archives lists quite few of them. I'm not going to show it to you because it goes beyond the scope of this review, but rest assured that information is easy to be found. So one could only wonder what went wrong when the band was named in a fashion that is already taken by many different bands. Be it as it may, here is the CD by Gutter Prince, and this one features a few tracks, and it's very basic standard in so many ways of delivering melodic fast tempo black metal. Now that is not to disrespect the band, but it's more like an interesting to see, or more like listen to, this kind of band that coming from Indonesia but really sounds something like which could have come out through some Nordic countries. So nothing outstanding here, nothing out of ordinary, but then again nothing to disrespect or laugh about, since this is black metal as it comes. And here we tune in for Metal Archives site to take a look at the band in question. So this one comes from Jakarta and is the second album in question by this band, founded in 2005. Don't know why it took so goddamn long for this band to come out with the first release. I mean, it's technically speaking 15 years. This is with the assumption that information in Metal Archives is correct. Sometimes it's not, because there's simply not enough information to talk about it and all that stuff, but we'll go with whatever is possible here, and maybe it will be corrected later on, assuming there are some incorrections. So once again, very standard and very basic in terms of length and tracks amount. I mean, it's 7 tracks, 48 minutes, roughly, give or take, and throughout the course of action, this is basically melodic black metal. You have faster parts, but it's not like going old Marduk all the way down. This is something that could have been phenomenal some, I don't know, 30 years ago, but now it's more like tapping to the very safe veins, very safe style that has been out there for, I don't know, at least 30 years. And while there is nothing wrong fundamentally, I mean, if you really think about the given style, the production, the vocals, everything, including the cover, or the album name or whatever, nothing here is really like, hey, this is something different, something that makes me tick in a weird ways. Like, I'm interested. Nothing here like is going off track. But that also works for the better and the worse. Worse in the sense like this is not gonna stand out when you're looking for your next dose of fast tempo black metal, melodic or otherwise. This is not the rawest out there, this is not the purest or cleanest, super overly produced ones, but very much in the middle of the road. Now, if you're going for these kind of standards, like here is the platinum tier, the best in the genre, this goes even nowhere near. Not even the gold standard, which is something that a lot of people would say, yeah, those bands like Marduk or Mayhem back in their heydays or whatever, goes to gold standard, the kind of a classics when you're compared to. This goes roughly in the B or even C class. Maybe in B class in terms of quality, like Yes, this is definitely going to the same direction than a lot of those bands that really didn't make big, but at least they have something worthwhile listening to. You know, the kind of a forgotten classics or semi-classics. And then there is this absolute C class, not to mention the ones below. That is more like, yeah, this is not going to be future classic, not an underground cult thing, but something that is kind of a easy to listen and unfortunately easy to forget. And with this album, I am kind of bound to say Tombstone does not do anything actually wrong. But how this album is executed, how the songs work, how the compositions are, whatever, it's not like gonna just make waves. There's nothing wrong, but then again, you don't have absolutely nothing worth mentioning in a ways that, but at least the band has this and that. They don't. So this is on the verge of going to the B class from C class. C class in terms of, you know, absolutely having nothing interesting, special here. But then again, B class in the sense like there's nothing that really annoys you. I mean, it's just one of those bands that, or albums that is just, you know, very listenable but very forgettable. So I guess the coming days, months, years will show where Tombstone is heading, but this is not gonna make those waves we're supposed to have. So I don't know, worth checking out, but just don't expect too much, and that's the final verdict. Not exactly a 7 out of 10, but close, so decent dish. Alright, the next one is death metal from Italy, but doesn't sound anything like I would imagine Italian death metal band to sound like. This is Continuum of Xul with the first EP out there. And mind you, this one doesn't have a full album out yet, so this discography is very short and sweet. Just demo, split, and EP. And mind you, this is, in my opinion, a good way to start any kind of a band career. You don't take the big steps and go straight out for a full album, but rather go for like, okay, let's do demo, let's just tread the water, see how the things work, then go for a split or an EP, you know, still honing the style and all, and trying to figure out how you want to sound, what kind of music you want to do, and essentially you progress towards an album. When you finally have those really good songs and you have figured out what to include and what not. And this is being the first EP after a few years. There is no information when this band was founded, but we can rightfully say there was nothing before 2019. So it doesn't even matter if the band has been out there more than 4 years or 40 years. Nobody gives a damn, because what matters is that when you actually start, what is your starting point with your demo and whatever, and that what matters. Now coming into play with a few years now, this one is interesting release falling into Damnation. So as you can see, this EP with only 18 minutes, including this rather short intro. And then you have basically 4 tracks, of which one is Absu cover. So essentially, basically 3 songs plus a cover plus an intro. Not too much really if you think about it. Roughly 15 minutes of own material, 14, 15, and that's what matters. Now, this is the kind of a Morbid Angel type of death metal. It's kind of a, you know, a little bit bouncy, a little bit curvy, a little bit challenging, a little bit technical, but not too much. This is not your next level brutal slamming technical progressive whatever death metal. This is the kind of a Morbid Angel era 2022 or so. And it's in fact in that territory quite well done. I mean, the songs are interesting. It's not too complicated, but it's still more challenging than your boneheaded obituary riff copying, and that's what makes Continuum of Xul come into the radar like something like, hey, this is worthwhile checking. Now, given that this is or has been originally independent release and later on released on CDs by Lavadome Productions, which is something that I have here in home Finland, not here in Spain though. Is that you kind of can listen and hear this independent production. I mean, the guitar sound, for example, is somewhat weak. At some points, it doesn't really matter, but there are points where the riffs kind of sound somewhat like impotent. I'm gonna put it that way because it sounds like, yeah, this is not done in a real pro studio, but more like something like you could imagine capturing in your rehearsal room. So kind of okay, but still like a little bit clumsy. Drums are quite good though, and the basic rolly vocals can't really bitch about it, even though it's nothing special as such. Overall, I would say throughout this course of MCD, giving it a few spins, I would say this is pretty good. Not there yet to challenge Morbid Angel, obviously, being one of the best death metal bands of all times, but still quite interesting and definitely something that you might give a go because actually it is something promising. So give it a go and maybe you will like it. Now, the best of the pile, and now comes with a warning, is Anoxia from Australia. This is also a name that has been taken by quite a few bands, and this is what happens when you use excessive force to remove your CD from a well-packed parcel. Now, I was just too lazy to get, scissors or knife to just open the bag and just like, oh, let's just rip these plastic tapes and whatever, and then you end up breaking the jewel case. So don't be silly and lazy like me. Use proper tools and you will get your jewel cases undamaged. So this is not a fault by the label that sent me gutter prints, but me being lazy by my computer because we're powerlifters. We kind of store our power for later use. We're so lazy to move. Oh, joking aside, let's focus on the music here within. This is Languish in Suffering by Anoxia. And first thing that came to my mind when I was listening to this baby is Cannibal Corpse. Now, I was obviously looking before the review what other people might say about it on Metal Archives, saying about similar artists, and I was surprised that not Cannibal Corpse was mentioned. What is also interesting that people are saying this is brutal death metal when Cannibal Corpse, which used to be, in my opinion, as far as I can remember, was labeled as brutal death metal. It's just nowadays death metal. So I don't know where you draw the line if this is brutal death metal and Cannibal Corpse is just death metal. In my opinion, they both would justify to be called brutal death metal because in my opinion they are both that. But let's not focus on the details. Let's not get really autistic. This is something that doesn't really want to come out with my non-existent fingernails, but I'm trying. Anyway, the music here is actually good. This is something that is borderline catchy, but not exactly on the level of Cannibal Corpse level of songwriting, but getting quite close to it. And it seems I'm like, okay, I'm not going to remove it. Let's not waste our time on that. And this is also, technically speaking, MCD. As you can see, 4 tracks plus a demo track. Okay, and now it comes falling. So you just have to wait and let the gravity do its work. Anyway, this is technically speaking CDR. If you take a look, you will see the color changes here. So Pro CDR because it's all printed, all proper covers, but once again, technically speaking, CDRs. That shouldn't be a problem though, unless you're having some kind of a legacy thing here with your CD player and all, so it should work properly even if it's CDR. So Anoxia from Australia, Sydney, and here you have one single out before this EP. Once again, much like that Continuum of Xul, this one isn't going very first to full album measures or whatever, but doing smaller releases first. And this is already pretty goddamn promising because, everything here is well done. And about these similar artists, by the way, now that we got talking, D-Side, Morbid Angel, Skeletal Remains, Suffocation. Now, I can understand being compared to Suffocation, which is brutal and somewhat technical death metal, that this is brutal death metal, but the other ones are just death metal. So how come Anoxia reminds you of bands that are death metal if this is one brutal death metal? This is what I'm talking about here. But let's not focus on that. Languish in Suffering includes indeed 4 different tracks plus a demo version. So technically speaking, once again, this is much like the Continuum, some 18 minutes or for 17-18 minutes of death metal. But this is a little bit more brutal and not as technical or curvy and bouncy as that Morbid Angel-like thing. This is more straightforward, breaking your bones and shattering your mind and all that shit, which you're supposed to get when you're listening to death metal. I mean, it's not supposed to be melodic, sweet, and all that stuff, which is something that people call melodic death metal. Death metal. This is kind of a proper death metal. This is where you just feel the heavy guitars, proper growly vocals, and, shredding heavy guitars, and you're like, yeah, this is something that's gonna rip your head off, as it's supposed to happen. So once again, this is like Australian Cannibal Corpse in the making. I am definitely now officially stoked to see how this band plays it out when it's time to do the full album. Will they actually improve from this MCD, or will they fail at doing it? Because that's usually the real trial by fire, really. I mean, it's easy to do a demo which has decent songs, but when it's time for a full album, do you have it? Do you have those 30 to 45 minutes, whatever, and include better songs? Even more so with even better production. I think Anoxia has it. I'm very, very actually convinced they have the thing going on. So this is the kind of like, this is what we have. This is our demo basically, and wait for it. Wait for the full album, and they're gonna just prove it. They're gonna prove that I'm wrong. I'm wrong, in the sense of failing. I'm hoping there will be proof that I'm correct, and this is actually the next big thing coming from Australia, especially in the terms of death metal, brutal or otherwise. So check it out. All these are now out, obviously. Anoxia and Tombstone, I think, were released around Feb or March 2023. I mean, this kind of information sometimes is a little bit off because this refers to the original dates. So for example, here it says February 2023 and all. So these are all out. Check out the links provided in the description box for finding more information and finding the actual band links to listen to the stuff. And what can I say? I hope you like them, at least some of them. At least if you have only time for one band, start with Anoxia and then move on with the list if you have the time and will and all that stuff. Looking forward to your comments. What do you like? What do you didn't like? See ya and take care.